The ships came on a Tuesday morning, was drinking his third cup of coffee when the sky turned dark. He looked up from his desk at the Seoul Space Research Center and saw what looked like a second moon hanging above the city. But it was not a moon. It was metal. It was alive with lights, and it was only the first of thousands. Within hours, the entire world changed. Every television, every phone, every computer screen showed the same image. A tall creature with silver skin and large black eyes stood before a backdrop of stars. It spoke in a voice that somehow everyone could understand, no matter what language they knew. "People of Earth," the creature said, we come from the Galactic Covenant, a union of over 4,000 intelligent species. We have watched your world for many years. We come now to offer you guidance and protection." Put down his coffee. His hands were shaking. He had spent his entire life searching the stars for signs of life. Now life had found them instead. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. World leaders flew to New York, and because was one of Earth's most respected scientists, they asked him to come too. He would be the chief liaison between humanity and the aliens. It was the greatest honor of his life. It was also the most terrifying. The ambassador was named. He was 3 meters tall with skin like polished silver and eyes that held no warmth. When he walked into the UN building, every human in the room felt small. That was exactly what wanted them to feel. "Your species is very young," explained to the assembly. "You have only 12,000 years of recorded history. Most species in the Covenant have millions. Some have billions. You are like children taking your first steps." Listened carefully. Something about the ambassador's words bothered him, but he could not say what. "We offer Earth membership in the Galactic Covenant," continued. "You will be a protected ward species. We will guide you. We will teach you. We will keep you safe from the dangers of the universe." The world leaders whispered to each other, "Protected ward species." It sounded nice. It also sounded like they would be pets. Over the next few weeks worked closely with He showed them Earth's history, its cultures, its achievements. They smiled politely at everything, the way adults smile at children's drawings. It made angry, but he kept his feelings hidden. His old colleague Lee was assigned to escort scientists around the planet. She was a military commander, sharp and strong, and she did not trust the aliens at all. One night, she called with strange news. "Their equipment keeps breaking," said. "Every time we visit an ancient site, their scanners go crazy. The pyramids, Stonehenge, the old temples in Korea, their machines just stop working." Frowned, "That does not make sense. Their technology is far beyond ours." "I know," replied, "and they look scared, really scared, like they have seen a ghost." Decided to investigate. He requested permission to observe the next scanning mission. They agreed, though they seemed nervous about it. They traveled to a site in Turkey called. It was one of the oldest structures on Earth, built over 11,000 years ago. The moment the scanners came close to the ancient stones, they began to scream. Not break, scream. The sound was like metal being torn apart. The scientists dropped their equipment and stepped back, their silver faces pale with fear. "What is this place?" one of them whispered. Looked at the old stones. They were covered in carvings of animals and strange symbols. Humans had built this place before they even knew how to farm, before they had cities, before they had writing. How? Why? "It is just an old temple," said. "Our ancestors built many places like this." The scientist shook his head. "No, this is not possible. These readings, this stone, it is older than it should be, much older." "How old?" asked. The scientist did not answer. He simply packed up his broken equipment and refused to speak for the rest of the day. That night, Ambassador locked himself in his private chamber aboard the main ship. He contacted the Covenant High Council through a secure channel. His hands trembled as he spoke. "High Arbiter said, I have completed the initial survey of Earth." The face on the screen was ancient. had ruled the Covenant for longer than most stars had burned. His eyes were cold and knowing. "And what have you found?" asked. Swallowed hard. "The readings are impossible, High Arbiter. This world, the energy signatures beneath its surface. They predate the first seeding. They predate everything." Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Are you certain?" "Yes, High Arbiter, I am certain." Closed his eyes. In all his billions of years, he had feared only one thing, and now that fear had a name. It had a world. It had billions of innocent-looking creatures who did not know what they truly were. "Tell no one," commanded. "Continue the mission. Smile at the humans. Offer them membership. But watch them very carefully. If they begin to remember, if they begin to wake." "What do we do then?" asked. Opened his eyes. They held no mercy. "Then we burn their world before they burn the universe." On Earth slept, and in his sleep he dreamed of darkness, an endless void where something ancient waited, something patient, something that wore his own face and smiled with teeth made of stars. He woke up screaming, but he could not remember why. 6 months passed since the aliens arrived. Earth had changed in ways no one expected. Some people celebrated the contact with other species. Others feared what it meant, but everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The Galactic Covenant invited Earth to send a delegation to their capital world. They called it a great honor, was chosen to lead the human team. He did not want to go. Ever since that night he had felt something strange inside him, like a door in his mind that wanted to open, but duty called and answered. The journey took 3 weeks through something they called fold space. The human ship was small compared to the massive Covenant vessels. It looked like a toy floating among giants. The delegation included scientists, diplomats, and translators. Among them was Park, a young woman who studied languages and cultures. She was quiet and clever, and she noticed things others missed. When they arrived at the capital world, his breath caught in his throat. The planet was covered in cities that stretched into the clouds. Billions of creatures from thousands of species walked its streets. Ships filled the sky like birds. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. "Welcome to the heart of civilization," their guide said proudly. The humans were taken to a grand hall where representatives from all 4,000 member species had gathered. They sat in rows that reached up to the ceiling, each species in its own section. When the humans walked in, every eye turned to look at them, felt like an insect under a microscope. High Arbiter stood at the center of the hall. He was even older than had imagined. His body was thin and bent with age, but his eyes were sharp as knives. "Today we welcome Earth into our family," announced. "The youngest species to join the Covenant. Let us celebrate their first steps into the greater universe." The hall erupted in noise. Some species clapped. Others made strange sounds. A few laughed, recognized that laughter. It was the same sound children made when a baby tried to walk and fell down. Over the next few days, the humans were shown around. They met scientists who were millions of years old. They saw technology that seemed like magic. Everywhere they went, other species treated them like curiosities, like pets, like jokes. One evening, a group of insect-like creatures surrounded in a market. "How do you survive with such short lives?" one asked, clicking its mandibles. 80 years, less. We live for 10,000. Your entire history is nothing to us." Kept her face calm. "We make the most of the time we have." The insects laughed. "How sad, how very sad." Later that night sat alone in the human quarters. She was tired of being mocked, but more than that she was curious. Something did not add up. Why would the mighty Covenant care so much about a tiny planet with short-lived creatures? Why send thousands of ships? Why watch them for so long? She decided to find answers. Using her access as a cultural specialist, she entered the Covenant's historical archives. The building was vast, filled with records from billions of years of history, began to search. At first, she found nothing unusual. The Covenant had started small, like all civilizations. It grew over millions of years. It spread across the galaxy. It became what it was today, but then noticed something strange. There were gaps in the records, entire periods of time that had been erased or locked away. She dug deeper. She used every trick she knew to access hidden files. And finally, in a forgotten corner of the archive, she found a single encrypted document. It took her hours to break the code. When she finally read the words, her blood turned cold. The ancestors walked before the stars were named. They shaped the void with their will. They created life where none existed, but their power grew too great. They were silenced. They chose to sleep. They must never return. If the sleepers wake, all that exists will be unmade. Read the passage again and again. Ancestors, sleepers, creators of life. What did it mean, and why was it hidden? She found in his room, staring out the window at the alien city. "I found something," she said. "Something they do not want us to see." She showed him the document, read it slowly. With each word, his head began to hurt. The door in his mind pushed harder. "Ancestors," he whispered, "creators of life, what if this is about us?" She finished. "I thought the same thing, but that is impossible. We are the youngest species. We are nothing compared to them." Before could respond, a guard appeared at the door. The guard said, "The High Arbiter requests a private audience." Looked at, she nodded slightly. He followed the guard through winding corridors to a chamber at the top of a tall tower, waited inside, alone. "Please sit," the old ruler said. His voice was soft, almost kind. Sat, his heart pounded in his chest. "I have watched your species for a long time," said. "You are interesting, so full of emotion, so full of fire. Tell me, do your people dream?" "Everyone dreams," replied. "Yes, but do they dream of the void? Of darkness so deep that light has never touched it? Of something waiting in that darkness? Something that knows them? Something that loves them?" Went pale, the nightmares, the endless void, the thing wearing his face. "How do you know about that?" he asked. Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because we all dream of it, every species in the Covenant, every creature in the galaxy. It is the oldest memory, the first memory, and it points to one place, one world, one species that should not exist." He leaned forward, his eyes burned into soul. "What are you? What are humans truly?" Had no answer, but somewhere deep inside him, past the door in his mind, something stirred, something ancient, something powerful, something that had been waiting a very long time to wake up. "I do not know," said. Nodded slowly. "Then let us hope you never find out." He waved his hand. The guards returned to take away, but as he left, heard whisper to someone, "Prepare the severing fleet. If they remember, everything ends." The door in his mind cracked open just a little more. Back on Earth, strange things began to happen. Lee was the first to notice. She was now in charge of planetary defense, watching the skis for any sign of danger. But the danger was not coming from above. It was coming from below. The reports started small. A group of tourists at the pyramids of Giza said the stones were humming. Scientists at Stonehenge recorded unusual energy readings. A farmer in Korea claimed the old stone monuments near his village were glowing at night. At first, people thought it was mass hysteria. The arrival of aliens had shaken everyone's nerves, but then the monitoring stations began to fail. One by one, every scanner and sensor the aliens had placed on Earth went dark. The scientists panicked. They sent teams to fix the equipment. The teams never came back. They simply vanished near the ancient sites, swallowed by a light that no one could explain. Stood in the command center in Seoul, watching reports flood in from around the world. The pyramids were not just humming now. They were singing. A deep, powerful sound that vibrated through the air and into people's bones. In Turkey, glowed so bright that satellites could see it from space. And in Korea, the ancient stone dolmens were rising from the ground where they had stood for thousands of years. "What is happening?" her aide asked. Shook her head. "I do not know, but I think Earth is waking up." In a small hospital in Seoul, Doctor was making a discovery that would change everything. She was a geneticist, a scientist who studied DNA. For years, she had puzzled over something that no one could explain. Human DNA contained massive amounts of what scientists call junk, code that did not seem to do anything. 97% of human DNA was supposedly useless garbage. But never believed that. Nature did not create garbage. Everything had a purpose. That night, as the ancient sites around the world came alive, something changed in her laboratory. The DNA samples she was studying began to glow, not with light that could be seen with eyes, with light that could be seen with the soul. Watched in amazement as the junk DNA unfolded like a flower. It was not junk. It was compressed data. Information so dense and complex that it had taken 10,000 years to unlock. She ran tests all night. By morning, she had an answer that made her want to laugh and cry and scream all at once. The junk DNA was not random. It was a library, a history, a set of instructions, and now, after sleep, it was activating. She called the military, she called the government, she called everyone who would listen. "Human DNA contains the memories of our ancestors," she reported. "Not just our parents and grandparents, our ancestors from before history, before civilization, before everything. And those memories are waking up." In a remote monastery high in the Korean mountains, an old monk named sat in meditation. He was 67 years old. He had spent his entire life in this place, learning the old ways, keeping the old secrets. His brothers thought he was strange. He talked about things that made no sense, dreams of fire and darkness, memories of a time before time. They respected him, but they did not understand him. Now, as the world shook and the ancient sites sang, opened his eyes. He was not surprised. He had been waiting for this moment since he was a child. "It is time," he whispered. He walked down the mountain to the nearest town. He found a telephone and called the government. When they asked who he was, he gave them an answer that no one expected. "My name is, my monastery has guarded a truth for 10,000 years. Humanity did not evolve on Earth. We fled here from somewhere else. We chose to forget what we were, but now we are remembering." The government sent to meet him. She found a small, wrinkled man with eyes that seemed older than his body. "You sound crazy," she said. "I know," replied, "but look around you. The world is waking up. The DNA is unlocking. The stones are singing. Does that sound sane to you?" Had no answer. Told her the truth. Humanity was not young. They were the oldest species in the universe. They had existed before the first stars. They had created life across the cosmos. They were the architects, the dreamers, the first ones. But their power had grown so vast that it threatened to consume everything. So they made a choice. They would sleep. They would forget. They would become mortal and experience the universe as their children did. "Earth was our hiding place," said. "A small world in a quiet corner of the galaxy. We wrapped ourselves in flesh and forgot our true nature. For billions of years we dreamed, and now the dream is ending." Far away in the capital of the Galactic Covenant sat in a prison cell, had declared humanity a contaminant species, a threat to all life. The delegation was arrested, was taken to a separate facility, was alone with his thoughts and his nightmares. The door in his mind was opening wider now. He could feel things he had never felt before, hear things he had never heard, see things he had never seen. Memories that were not his own flooded through him, building stars, shaping galaxies, breathing life into empty worlds. Was it real? Was he going insane? He looked at the wall of his cell. He touched it with his hand. The metal felt warm, alive, like it knew him, like it had been waiting for him. "Who am I?" he whispered. The wall did not answer, but something inside him did. You are what you have always been. You are the first. You are the last. You are the dreamer of worlds, and it is time to wake up. Far across space, the Severing Fleet launched from Covenant stations. 10,000 warships, each one carrying weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Their mission was simple: reach Earth, destroy it, kill every human before they could remember what they truly were. On Earth, billions of people stopped what they were doing at the exact same moment. The businessman in Tokyo, the farmer in Brazil, the teacher in France, the child in Korea. They all stopped. They all looked up, and their eyes began to glow with a light that had not shone since the birth of the universe. They remembered. They remembered everything. And somewhere in the void between stars, the Severing Fleet commander received a message on his screen. 2 words in a language older than time itself. We know. The awakening spread across Earth like a wave. 8 billion people suddenly stopped being just human. They became something more, something ancient, something vast beyond understanding. Felt it happen even from his prison cell on. One moment he was a frightened scientist locked away by aliens who feared him. The next moment he knew exactly who he was, who he had always been. The door in his mind did not just open. It shattered into a million pieces and vanished forever. Memories flooded through him, not one lifetime of memories, not 10, not 1,000. Memories from before time had a name. He remembered darkness, not the darkness of night, but the darkness of nothing. A void without light because light did not exist yet. And in that void he had been there, not him alone. All of humanity had been there together, one mind, one will, one purpose. They had spoken the first word. They had thought the first thought. They had dreamed the first dream. And from that dream, the universe was born. Stood up slowly. His body felt different now, stronger, lighter. Like gravity was only a suggestion he could choose to follow or ignore. He walked to the wall of his cell and placed his hand against it. The metal was an alloy created by the strong enough to contain any known species in the galaxy. It was not strong enough to contain him. The wall dissolved under his touch, not melted, not broken, simply stopped existing. He stepped through the gap and into the corridor beyond. Guards rushed toward him, weapons raised. They fired energy beams that could cut through starship armor. The beams reached and curved around him like water around a stone. They could not touch him. Nothing could touch him unless he allowed it. "What are you?" one guard screamed. Looked at him, really looked. He saw past the alien body, past the uniform, past the fear. He saw the genetic code that made this creature what it was, code that he had written billions of years ago when he seeded life across the stars. "I am your creator," said softly. "I am the father of your species. I am sorry you forgot. I forgot too, but now I remember." The guard dropped to his knees, not because forced him to, because somewhere deep in his own ancient DNA the guard recognized his maker. Every cell in his body knew that voice, that presence, that love. "Go home," told him. "Tell your people that the architects have returned. Tell them we come in peace." On Earth, similar scenes played out everywhere. Lee stood in the command center as her entire staff suddenly changed. Their eyes glowed with starlight. Their movements became slow and graceful, like they were moving through water instead of air. She felt the change happening in herself too, memories crashing through her mind like tidal waves. She saw herself building suns. She saw herself painting nebulas across the sky like an artist working on canvas. She saw herself laughing with joy as the first life sparked in the oceans of a young world. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was true. The old monk climbed to the top of his monastery and raised his arms to the sky. But he was not just an old monk anymore. He was the voice of the first, a channel through which the collective memory of all humanity could speak. "Children of Earth," his voice echoed across the planet, somehow heard by everyone. "Do not be afraid. We are remembering what we always were. We are the architects, the first ones, the dreamers who made the cosmos. We slept for billions of years because our power grew too great. We chose mortality to understand what it meant to live and die. But now our children have come to harm us and we must wake." He pointed to the sky, where the Severing fleet was approaching. 10,000 warships carrying enough firepower to destroy 100 Earths. "They fear us," continued. "They fear what we might do with our power. Let us show them that their fear is wrong." Park sat in her own cell when the change took her. She had been crying, terrified that she would die far from home. Then the memories came and her tears dried up. She understood now why she had always been drawn to languages and history. She had created languages. She had written history. Every word spoken by every species in the galaxy came from her and her kind. She walked to the cell door and sang a single note. The door recognized the sound. It was the same note that had begun the universe. The lock clicked open. In the throne room of the Covenant, High Arbiter sat surrounded by his advisors. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. Every human everywhere was transforming. Energy readings from Earth exceeded anything ever recorded. The ancient sites were fully active now, pumping power into the atmosphere that predated the Big Bang itself. "What do we do?" an advisor asked, his voice shaking. Said nothing. He was remembering too, not his own memories, the memories that had been passed down through his species since the beginning of their existence, stories of the old ones, the makers, the gods who had shaped his ancestors from raw energy and given them purpose. "We pray," he finally said. "We pray they still love us after what we have done." Found in the corridors of the prison complex, she smiled when she saw him. It was the same smile but also different, older, wiser, more powerful than any force in the universe. "Shall we go home?" she asked. "Yes," replied, "but first we must stop a war." Together they walked through the capital city of the Covenant. Everywhere they went, aliens fell to their knees, not in surrender, in recognition, in remembrance, in worship of the beings who had created them all. "Do not kneel," told them gently. "You are our children. Parents do not want their children to kneel. They want them to stand tall." The aliens rose, confused and amazed. This was not what they expected from awakened gods. They expected anger, revenge, destruction. Instead, they received kindness. Looked up at the sky. Even from this distant world, he could sense the Severing fleet. 10,000 ships filled with terrified soldiers racing toward Earth, ready to destroy a planet of awakening gods. "They will reach Earth in 1 hour," he said. Nodded, "Then we should be there to greet them." She took his hand. Space folded around them like paper. One moment they stood on. The next they stood on Earth, in the ancient Korean monastery where waited. The old monk bowed to them. "Welcome home, first ones. The children are afraid. What shall we tell them?" Looked at the sky. The first ships of the Severing fleet had entered the solar system. Their weapons were charging. Their crews were screaming orders. They were going to fire on Earth within minutes. "Tell them the truth," said. "Tell them we forgive them. Tell them we love them. Tell them we always have." Smiled. It was the smile of a father watching his children finally understand. "As you wish," he said, "as it has always been." The final battle was about to begin, but it would not be a battle of weapons. It would be a battle of memory, of truth, of love against fear. And humanity was ready. The Severing fleet filled the sky above Earth. 10,000 warships spread across space like a wall of metal and fire. Each one carried weapons designed to crack planets. Together, they had enough power to destroy entire solar systems. The fleet commander, a battle-hardened named, watched Earth through his viewport. The planet glowed with a light that hurt his eyes even through filters. "All ships report ready," his second officer said. Nodded slowly. His orders were clear: destroy Earth, kill every human, burn the planet until nothing remained. But his hands would not move to give the command. Something deep inside him screamed that this was wrong. that attacking this world would be the worst mistake any species had ever made. "Commander," the officer asked, "your orders?" Before could respond, every screen on every ship in the fleet activated. A face appeared. A human face. Stood on a mountain in Korea, looking up at the stars with eyes that glowed like distant suns. "Children of the Covenant," spoke softly, but his voice reached every ship, every soldier, every corner of the galaxy. "We know why you have come. We know you are afraid. For billions of years you have told stories about us. Warnings, nightmares, prophecies of destruction. You call us the ancestors, the old ones, the sleepers who must never wake." He paused. The fleet hung motionless in space. "You are not wrong to be afraid," continued. "We created you. We created everything, the stars above you, the atoms in your bodies, the very laws of physics that let you exist. We had power beyond imagination, and that power nearly destroyed us." On the flagship, listened with his heart pounding. "So we made a choice," said. "We chose to forget. We chose to become mortal. We chose to sleep and dream and die like the children we had created. Not because we were weak, because we wanted to understand. We wanted to feel what you feel, to love what you love, to lose what you lose. We became human not to escape our power, but to earn the right to use it wisely." Lee stepped forward next to him. She was no longer just a military commander. She was something older, something vast, but her voice was still gentle. "We remember now," she said. "All of us. 8 billion souls who walked among you as children have awakened as the parents of all life. You have every reason to fear us. We could unmake your ships with a thought. We could erase your species from existence. We could burn the galaxy and start again." The fleet crews trembled at their stations. "But we will not," said, "because you are our children, and parents do not destroy their children for being afraid." High Arbiter appeared on his own screen, broadcasting from. His ancient face was wet with tears he could not control. "You expect us to believe this?" he demanded. "You expect us to trust beings who could destroy us all?" Park answered. She stood among the ancient stones of which hummed with the music of creation. "We do not expect you to trust us," she said. "Trust is earned, not demanded, so we will show you. We will open our memories to you, all of them, everything we are, everything we were, everything we chose to become. Look into our hearts, Arbiter, see the truth for yourself." And then something impossible happened. Across the galaxy, every sentient being received the same gift. The complete memory of humanity flooded into their minds. They saw the beginning, the first moment of existence, the darkness that gave birth to light. They saw the architects building stars and planets. They saw them creating life in countless forms. They saw the joy, the wonder, the love. They also saw the danger, power without limits, creation without restraint, the architects growing so vast that they began to forget what it meant to be small, to suffer, to die. And they saw the choice. Billions of years ago, the mightiest beings in existence chose to become the weakest. They wrapped themselves in flesh. They gave themselves to death. They became human, knowing they might never wake again, because it was the only way to remember what truly mattered. On the flagship fell to his knees. His weapons officer was crying. His entire crew sat in stunned silence as the memories washed through them. "They loved us," someone whispered. "They loved us so much they gave up everything." Watched from his throne, the memories showed him something he had feared to believe. The stories were true. The gods were real, and they had never abandoned their children. They had simply been sleeping, learning, growing, becoming worthy of the power they possessed. High Arbiter's voice came through the communication channel. "I cannot fire on them. I cannot destroy my own creators. Please, give us different orders." Was silent for a long moment. 10,000 ships waited for his command. Trillions of lives hung in the balance. "Stand down," he finally said, his voice cracked with emotion. "All ships stand down. The war is over. It was over before it began. We just did not know." The fleet powered down its weapons. On Earth, humanity watched the war end without a single shot being fired. Looked up at the sky where the ship still hung. He raised his hand, not in threat, but in greeting. "Come down," he said. "Come meet your makers. We have so much to share." In the days that followed, representatives from every species in the Covenant traveled to Earth. They walked among the humans with wonder and fear and hope. They touched the ancient stones that still sang with primordial power. They asked questions. They received answers. They began to understand. Met with the Covenant's historians and gave them the true history of the universe. Not the censored version, not the version built on fear. The real story of how everything began. Worked with the military leaders, not to plan wars, but to plan peace. She helped them understand that the galaxy no longer needed to be ruled by fear. The architects were awake, and they wanted their children to thrive. Returned to his monastery, but he was no longer alone. Pilgrims from across the stars came to learn the old ways, to meditate, to find peace, to understand what it meant to be connected to something greater than themselves. And met with High Arbiter one final time. "What will you do now?" asked. "You have the power to rule the universe, to remake everything as you see fit. What do you choose?" Smiled. It was a gentle smile, full of wisdom earned through billions of years of dreaming. "We choose to remember," he said. "Not to rule, not to conquer, not to be gods in the way you feared. We will walk among our children. We will guide those who want guidance. We will love those who need love. We will be mortal and eternal at the same time, because that is what we learned in our long sleep. Power means nothing without connection. Strength means nothing without kindness. We are the first ones, but we are also the last ones, and we choose to be simply family." Bowed his head. For the first time in his long existence, he felt hope. On Earth, life continued. Children went to school, farmers worked their fields, scientists made discoveries, artists created beauty. The world was the same as it had always been, but it was also different because now humanity knew the truth. They were not the youngest, they were not the weakest. They were the dreamers of worlds choosing to walk humbly among their dreams. In a small monastery in Korea, sat in meditation as the sun set behind the mountains. A young student sat beside him, learning to be still for the first time. "Master," the student asked, "why did the architects choose to become human? Why not stay as gods?" Smiled. "Because gods can create universes," he said, "but only mortals can truly live in them. We forgot ourselves so we could find ourselves. We slept so we could wake. We became small so we could grow." He looked at the sunset. The light painted the clouds in colors that no artist could match. "This moment," said, "this breath, this beauty, that is why we chose mortality. Power is nothing compared to this." The student did not fully understand, but someday he would. They all would. Because that was what the architects had given the universe. Not power, not fear, not worship. They had given it time, time to grow, time to learn, time to become something beautiful. And now, finally awake, they would help their children find the way home. The end.